Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, maybe good morning to you. Good evening. My name is Chris Hill. I work at the Hussman School of Journalism and Media at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And I'm excited for you to join us here for this international focus discussion, our September Global Diplomacy Dialogue. And I'm very excited by the panelists and the co-moderator who have joined me here today. Just a couple of little bits of housekeeping. If you have any questions or anything like that, or if we say anything that you want to follow up on, please type your questions into the chat, and then one of the people in International Focus will help direct that question to us. We will also have time for questions at the end, so we can sort that out there. And I will also say there is an event coming up on October 14th. That is a global social. So that is from International Focus. So if you are interested in that, I'll give you a bit more information about it later. But Thursday, October the 14th at 6:30 p.m., there's going to be an in-person event for International Focus. So enough of me. I am going to pass it over to my co-moderator, Simon Patrick Obi, who'll just introduce himself. And then we will get our panelists, Frank and Trust, to introduce themselves. So Simon Patrick Obi, if you want to introduce, I will say that everybody has 2 minutes or less to introduce themselves. I like to run a tight ship here. So Simon Patrick Obi, please go ahead.
All right, thank you so very much, Chris, for that wonderful intro. My name is Simon Patrick Obi, and I'm connecting from Nigeria. Nigeria is a country in Africa. I'm the founder and the executive director for Greenlight Initiative. Greenlight is a nonprofit that works to promote road safety and sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you. Trust, do you want to tell us who you are?
Thank you very much, Chris. My name is Trust Madovi. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Goromonzi Rural District Council, a rural local authority in Zimbabwe. That's in Southern Africa. I've been in my current job, I think, for about close to 20 years now. And I've been working with rural communities ever since I left college. So I've never had any other job other than what I'm doing right now. And in terms of my career trajectory, I intend to remain in my job, serving my community. And I also intend to join the academic field on a part-time basis, just to impart some knowledge on my experiences. And I'm currently doing my PhD at Africa University, and I'm majoring in local economic development, focusing on rural areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trust. Frank, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dr. Frank Habineza, the president of the Democratic Green Party of Rwanda. It's a fully registered political party. I'm also a member of parliament representing the same party. My party has got 5% of the national vote, so I have 2 MPs and 1 senator. I'm also a member of the African Greens Federation, where I'm the chief advisor, and a member of the Global Greens Coordination, which is like the coalition of the green parties all over the world. So I've been very active in politics, but also in civil society. I've been a journalist and I've been a writer. So I'm very pleased to be with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Before we go too much further, I'd like to see if we could get the map up. I believe Maggie had prepared a map just so everybody could visualize where everybody is coming from. So we have kind of Zimbabwe down in the south, and then Rwanda kind of in the central east section, and then Nigeria there over in the west. Sometimes it just helps for us to understand where everybody is, and just kind of think about the vast differences in distance between all the countries. But we'll maybe talk about some of the similarities and differences. I know yesterday we had a spirited discussion about which country had the most beautiful scenery and the most interesting animals and all this, but maybe we will leave that for later. Because what I want to start us off on first is I want to start with trust. I'm interested in some of the positive changes that you have seen in your community or kind of in Zimbabwe. You said you've been working for a long time in your local community. I'm interested in kind of how like the middle class or like how people are becoming more economically independent, or how the local area has been improving. Could you tell us a little bit about things that you have seen and maybe helped improve in your local community or perhaps in Zimbabwe at large?
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. Ever since I started working in the rural local authorities, I think previously we had so many challenges, and most of them were to do with the infrastructure, so to speak, in rural areas as compared to the urban areas. And this was mainly due to our colonial past, where the urban areas were a bit more developed than the rural areas. So all the infrastructure was lacking in rural areas, be it schools, health centers, be it the economic means in terms of employment. Most of the rural folk were wallowing in poverty, and most of them were living at less than $1 per day. But I think over the years, as our government, especially the new dispensation, which we call the new dispensation now, and I'm sure you're aware of that one, there's been a lot of reforms to try and change the lives of rural communities, or to try and address the disparities that existed between the urban areas and the rural areas. And we've seen huge investments in terms of infrastructure, key enabling infrastructure for rural areas. First, we had growth points. These were supposed to be the hub for economic development in rural areas, whereby it was meant to curb rural to urban migration. And then with huge investments there by government, where government invested in roads, schools, and other infrastructure, so that we also provide the services to the rural community. Then we also see that in terms of school, the distance from the nearest schools in rural areas was very long as compared to urban areas again. So government focused again as a key priority to improve access to education for rural children. And we've had massive construction of schools. And now I think we now have rural schools performing very well because of the quality of education that is now available in rural areas. In terms of health, they were also lagging behind in terms of health centers. They were walking long distances, particularly women. They didn't have mother shelters or facilities to assist them. But now government has put in a lot of resources, particularly the new dispensation has come up with what is called a fiscal devolution, whereby funds are being availed through rural, this public infrastructure. To internet. Hello, Chris?
Yep,
yes,
I can still hear. Yep.
So we've had a lot of improvement. So now the new dispensation is now focusing on what we call fiscal devolution, whereby we are having fiscal transfers to rural local authorities in order to improve rural infrastructure. So we've had a lot of improvements in terms of water and sanitation, access to health, access to education, road infrastructure. So in a way,
trust. I think you've cut out there for us. And so I'm gonna switch it over to Frank to see if he can maybe talk a little bit about some of the things going on in
we've
Rwanda.
seen marked changes.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Frank, with the
in rural areas, whereby we are aiming towards achieving equality.
Okay, we'll try that one. So, Frank, with the infrastructure that Trust was talking about there, and kind of how that has improved a lot of the opportunities and availability for people and the development there. Is there a similar history in Rwanda
in terms
of a kind of
economic
rural urban divide? Is there a similar rural urban divide, and how is maybe your political party, or how are things that you have seen improving the lives for people in your constituency or areas?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. First of all, I appreciate so much the International Focus for organizing this event. And I want to say that I was I visited North Carolina in November 2014. I had participated in the US government international visitorship program for young African leaders, where I had come to do to study about grassroots democracy and observe midterm elections. We were many groups from Africa that were there, and we learned a lot from the US. And when I came back after that IVRP program, I championed democracy in Rwanda. Rwanda has a member of a political party, but after what I learned, I decided to take government to court because the government was changing the constitution of the country to give the president more terms. So they wanted to lift presidential term limits. So we took the government to the Supreme Court, trying to stop that process. And we had a Supreme Court hearing on the 29th of July, 2015. And we stood for democracy because we believed in respecting of 2 presidential term limits in the Constitution. But of course, we lost the case because it was very difficult depending on the way the situation was. And but this, they did what? They opened up the 5 term limits for the president. So he still is serving now, finishing his 7-year term after having served 2 terms. So it's the 3rd term, so he has to stand for more 2 terms. So basically, he may be in power for over 35 years. But we didn't stop there. There was a referendum in December 2015. My party was the only party that campaigned against the change of the constitution. So we were campaigning for the vote, for the no vote. Our initiative, of course, was very safe for the growth of democracy, and most importantly, for the respect of the rule of law principle. Because, as I said, that when in the US, we saw how the respect of the rule of law principle had been respected, and the separation of powers between the Congress and the executive and the judiciary. So this was my desire that there should be also respect of rule of law in Rwanda, and that's why we did that. Of course, we did not stop there. In 2017, August, the president was standing again for the 3rd term. I decided to stand against him, and it was my party, only my party, that stood against him with his ruling coalition of 9 political parties. It was a very difficult process, very difficult elections, but we managed to traverse the whole country, and we got several supporters. Many people supported us, and of course, it was not a very easy election. We lost it, and but we did our job of making sure that we have the grassroots democracy established in Rwanda. So in 2018, August, again, we fielded candidates for the parliamentary elections. And because we still believe in democracy, so we have to participate in elections. And this time around, we were able to win 5% of the national vote and got 2 MPs. So that was about 500,000 votes that we got at the time. So we entered parliament, and so myself, I'm a member of parliament. we continued this process of democratization of our country. In 2019, we campaigned for the Senate twice and we lost. And then in 2020, we again campaigned for the Senate, and this time we won one seat in the Senate. So I would say that my party now has 3 parliamentarians, 2 seats in the lower house and 1 seat in the Senate, which is, I think, a very good thing for a new party, which was registered in 2013, but the party had been established in 2009. So it's a good record, and we are the only real opposition party in Rwanda, the only main opposition in the country. So it's a good thing. It's not easy being the only party when the majority are all in pro government. Yeah. So I would say that I still have hope to be in the executive because the constitution allows that if your party is in the parliament, you can also be a minister. So we still have hope that we'll be in the cabinet one time soon or later. Yeah. So my party, how I've been involved to make changes in the community and the country. Specifically, we have been proposing policies and laws, both in parliament, but also outside parliament, in the media. So we always reject all bad policies or bylaws which are aimed at taking away people's rights or people's money. So we're always against them. We go to the radio, go on social media, Twitter, Facebook, wherever it's possible, we air out our views and our voice gets heard. And most times the government retracts those policies, and then we get a win and we get a lot of support from the population. So this is what we do most of the times. Of course, we also participate in other activities, like recently we had participated in removing waste from one river, main river in the city. It's called River Nyabugogo. So we went there to remove because it was being polluted so much. So we participated in removing the waste in the river. And we're also making a research on the basin, the Nile Basin in Rwanda, on against how we can fight corruption, pollution, water pollution. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that maybe for now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Thank you. And it is very interesting to hear the kind of 2 different approaches there. We have Trust using the infrastructure to kind of improve lives and kind of, and Frank as well to some extent. But then, Frank, you are using the political process and maybe things that you saw, in the United States, and elsewhere, to believe in the power of the government to change, which I guess is what Trust is doing in Zimbabwe. The government can change and bring about that. That is really interesting to hear about that. And I know, unfortunately, Trust, we had to cut you off because your connection came in and out. But what I want to do is actually move now to Simon Patrick Obi, because he is changing things, trying to change things, certainly in Nigeria and maybe further on. And Simon Patrick Obi is going to lead us on a next section. I won't say too much more. Simon Patrick Obi, though, can you just maybe explain a little bit about what it is that you do and the change that you are bringing or trying to see in your country?
Thank you so very much, Chris. And of course, Trust and Frank for the wonderful and incisive discussion so far. I enjoy Trust discussion talking about infrastructure, and also Frank talking about how they use politics, to begin to make changes in their community. For me, I work in the non-profit sector, and I founded an organization called Green Light Initiative. Like I earlier mentioned, Green Light is a non-profit that promotes road safety and sustainable development in Nigeria and across Africa. We started in 2013. It was just, for me, a passion to put smiles on the faces of people. The initial idea was, if you are on a traffic light and it turns red, and maybe you're running to catch up an event, maybe you're running late, you're anxious, but the moment you see green, you're happy, and then you move. So the initial idea was to put smiles on the faces of the downtrodden, right? To ensure that our society works, and to ensure that people live a life of fulfillment. So we started that in 2013, by educating people, providing medical support, free medical support for communities, And then also building library. I built a library in 2013 for a local community school, and so we continue our work, and then we did some donations of school materials to indigent students in local communities as a way of helping them, support them to become better in society. So we did that till 2015 when I read a shocking report that would change the cost of my work. I read a report that indicated that road traffic crashes, the one everyone knows as road accident, kill more Nigerians than Boko Haram. I mean, for those who do not know Boko Haram is the deadliest terrorist group in the whole world, So they've been, terrorizing northern Nigeria a lot. So the report indicated that this road accident kill more Nigeria than this deadly terrorist group. But yet, issues of road safety is not of importance to the government. It doesn't even make the headlines. So people die and nobody cares. So it touched me very well. And then we decided to change the course of our work to begin to educate people, raise awareness, and further advocate for road safety in Nigeria. And ever since, the journey has been smooth. It has been tough, but we've been, persistent, resilient in our work. In 2018, the US Embassy selected us for a grant. And then they repeated that they also funded us in 2019. We got a support from the US Department of State. And then in 2019 as well, I got a chance to be selected for IVLP, which gave me the opportunity to visit Raleigh, one of the best experience I had during my IVLP, which I hope to share soon. So in 2019, we got, I was one of the 48 leaders nominated for as a global road safety leader. A lot of UN recognitions, and then we get invited to speak at different UN forums. And just most recently, I was appointed into the board, the leadership board of the Global Youth Coalition for Road Safety. So this is just a brief about our impact stories. As time goes on, as the discussion goes on, you get to know more. But for the what of time, I'm looking at my time. I would like us to, take the conversation to next level, and that's getting to know about the big picture changes. How are changes being made? Because oftentimes people think people want to see the finish line before starting, but things isn't like that. You have to start somewhere before moving to another level. So I will start from trust. Trust, we talked about infrastructure in your community, and you also gave us a description of the length of experience you've been on this journey. But it didn't just start overnight. You started somewhere. So how was it possible for you? Walk us through the journey of how you got started small and now you're making a large impact in your community. You're muted if you can hear me, Trust.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, it was a long journey. Yeah, I started off, I grew up in a rural community again and went to school. My primary education I did in a rural school, and I was born during the colonial era. And the things that we experienced then, I should think also shaped my career and how I handle things now, because I learned how to have resilience, how to try and succeed in the face of diversity, you know. So in a rural school, it was tough, but then for my secondary education, I then went to an urban school. I moved to Harare, where I did my secondary education. Things were a little bit better, and I was exposed to urban life, which was better than rural life, which I experienced early on in life. So I then moved on to the University of Zimbabwe after passing my high school. And I forgot to mention that when I was in the rural area, my father was a village head, you know. So I would say he was also involved in the governance system of the country, and he was a leader at that level. So I got influenced a lot from the work of my father during my time in the rural areas. So I moved to the University of Zimbabwe, where I did a BSc in politics and administration. Again, it was also inclined into governance systems. So after that, I then soon after I went straight. I graduated some 6 months after graduation. I was appointed an executive officer. That was a management level, and I was responsible for human resources and administration. So it means my work cut across all the departments again, and I had the opportunity to lead. And soon after that, I was given a big challenge. I would say 6 months into the job, I was given a big challenge because the chief executive who was there left the organization. So I had to take over, but at that time, I could say I was not ready. And it was really tough for me because there were a lot of challenges at that time. So, but I had to face the challenges. You know, at that time when I joined, there were a lot of resistances in terms of council policies. The community was resisting the policies, be it resolutions, budgets, bylaws, and there was a lot of standoff between the local authority and the populace, the citizens. So we had to engage the people. I had to go around the whole local authority, engaging the people, getting to know their feelings, and also getting to take them on board as we crafted the policies of the council. And I want to say that I think at that juncture, we began to see an improvement in the relationship between the council and the citizen, because there was a lot of engagement and people were now participating in the governance of their council. And I can tell you after that, we never had any objections to budgets, any objections to bylaws, you see. So I would say it was tough, yes, but it was a very good learning experience, because ever since then, the biggest lesson which I learned is that in governance, you have to let the people speak. You have to let the people decide. And then your role is just to implement the ideas, of course, using the systems and the correct human resources. So when I grew into the job and I became substantive CEO, I think I maintained the same stance even up to now. We always put the views of our residents first. Of course, sometimes here and there, we will have to explain difficult situations sometimes because it's a win-win situation. But I must say that secret has helped me for the past 20 years, the secret of putting the views of the people first. That's what is helping me even to soldier on in the job. But I can tell you the job is tough because you have to strike a delicate balance between a multiplicity of interests. You know, you have to manage the politics. You also have to take care of people who have nothing to do with politics, you see. So I would say, yes, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying serving my people. It's difficult, but I intend to carry on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Trust. I mean, it's interesting to know your story. You know, having you mentioned that the will of the people have to prevail, especially in democracy, and you have learned that, and you in the course of your working experience, you've been putting that into experience. And that has actually worked for you. So thank you so very much for sharing that part of your journey with us. I will go over now to Frank. You know, Frank, you told us your story, I must say, is also inspiring. You know, I listened to your story, how you were persistent, how you were determined, you know, even when you failed, you went back again, to contest, and now your party has a position in the parliament and even in the Senate. It reminds me of the story of Abraham Lincoln. You know, you know, a man who passed through a lot of um, failures, but remained resolute, you know, in his commitment to serve his people. You know, so that's really inspiring. Oftentimes again, people think, changes happen overnight. You know, that's the perception. People want to see the finish line before starting something. You know, you didn't start like this. You passed through a lot of journey. You know, so I need you to walk us through how you got started and what is it like a top bottom approach. I mean, just explain to us. You know.
Thank you very much. Well, it's quite a long story, but I'll try to summarize it. I started first when I was young. I used to be a leader at school. So I used to head several departments. I was in Red Cross as chairman, Red Cross Club. I was also in Wildlife Club as chairman. I used to also to be coordinator of the school magazine. And I was very active at school, even at university. But in university, I set up an environmental organization called Rwanda Wildlife Clubs then, which helped me really to do a lot of work, planting trees, planting a lot of trees in the communities and also in schools. And then we had also a big project at a national park, and where we had planting trees to protect the animals coming to destroy people's plants or crops. So we did a lot of work there. And in between, I was a journalist. I was working for independent media. I was representing one media house, which was the most popular at the time at university. And so both mixing journalism and environmentalism opened me up for democratization. So I could see a lot of things were missing in the country. And then I could see that as NGOs in the society, we could talk, we give recommendations, and the government would not do anything. We make good reports, they just shelve them. They don't do anything. I said, what can we do to change something? Because we say, we speak, we do research, nothing happens. That's when I said that, you know what, I have to go into politics now. So it was way back when I was at university, in 2002, actually, when I said to start a political party. I was a second year student. It was funny, I convinced my fellow students. Then we set up a political party at the time, and we called it a Green Party of Rwanda. And in 2003, it was a very, very hostile environment. Politicians were being arrested, others exiled, others. It was very, very difficult because that was the time we were having the first elections. So we decided to cool it down because it was not the right moment. And then we revived it again in 2007. But at that time, I was already in government. I was working as a personal assistant to the Minister of Lands, Environment, Water, Forestry, and Mines. So I saw more when I was in government. But then I went also back in civil society in the Nairobi Basin. I was national coordinator. And then I had more contacts in the environmental movements all over the world, in the democracy movements all over the world. So then by 2009, we launched the Democratic Green Party of Rwanda. We had a big debate about the naming of the party. We wanted to call it the Democratic Front of Rwanda, wanted to call it the Democratic People's Party, wanted to call it a Liberal Party, no, Democratic Liberty Party. But then we said, you know what, we have to combine the two, democracy and environmentalism. So we just said we call it Democratic Green Party of Rwanda. And our objective was to promote democracy and environmental protection. So we thought it would be easy, we didn't believe that it would be, that people would take us as enemies because we were young and we had no criminal record or what. And but then, my dear, when we had our first national convention to register the party, it was in October 2009. The first one who had the permission to have the meeting, and then the police came and stopped our meeting when the meeting was in progress. Said, no, you have no permission. We showed them the document. Here is a document. They said, no, you have no permission. So we had to cancel. Then we organized another one on 30th October, and then we had the government notary who came to a meeting, and police was there to protect us and so on. We had about 1,500 people. And then in the middle of the meeting, when things were progressing very well, people just switched off the lights. And they started throwing chairs around, started seeing chairs flying and flying. And those people had guns, they had pistols. They came just towards the podium and wanted to shoot us. And I had diplomats, the people who came like from the American embassy were there, the Belgian embassy were there, Netherlands embassy were there, British embassy were there. It was very chaotic, and people were scared when we saw guns. And then we had to defend ourselves, and we managed to arrest those guys. And then when we put them outside, then the police came afterwards. That was the most, the police was outside, and they left us to fight ourselves to catch those guys after then they came afterwards. And then they actually arrested my people afterwards then. And then they took my people and they took those guys, but later they released those guys. But journalists, the BBC, Voice of America, they had seen everything, they reported everything live. And so it was all over the world in the news. And then the government said, oh, these people were just fighting ourselves. We said, no, these people had guns, they came to beat us up. And then they, of course, canceled our meeting. So from there on, 2009, we continued requesting for permission to have a meeting. They refused to give us permission to have a meeting. And in 2010, it became worse because we to take our people to the Ministry of Justice so that we can register from there. They refused. So by around June 2010, we were going to have a second election then. My deputy vice president was assassinated. His head was cut off in the southern part of the country. Of course, I was also under threat. My life was in danger at the time. We were living in, having death threats all the time. So when my deputy was decapitated, it was very terrible and very horrible. We all saw death coming. And I forgot to mention that my people some of them had already gone to exile at the time, 2009, because of the threats. So by August 2010, I also had to go to exile. So I left Rwanda by God's grace. I cannot tell you how, but I managed to get, I had a journalist with me from the BBC and some German newspapers. They came with me up the airport, like part of my security, kind of. So they let me go. It was just 2 days before the presidential elections. And then I went to Germany. And then from Germany, I went to Sweden. Then I also organized for my family to follow me up. They passed through Brussels, and then finally they phoned me before we met all of us each other in Sweden. So then we got political asylum in Sweden, and finally I stayed there for 2 years. But then I had to plan to come back because I said if I continue to stay in Sweden, then the whole thing will die off. Because if you stay long in exile, people who had faith in you, people believed in you, they will not continue standing with you. So then I had organized a lot of support from the Commonwealth. I think you know the Commonwealth Secretariat in London. It's a very big, powerful organization for all countries that were ruled by Britain. And so they organized for me one big meet when they had a Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Australia. So they invited me there. And I had a chance, even by the support of the Australian government, to participate in the Minister of Foreign Affairs meeting, where we raised our issues with the government of Rwanda. And and I was also given a chance to be on the Australian radio, Australian TV. So my message got heard, and then we had people trying to talk to the government of Rwanda then in Australia. It was not easy. So I kept on planning to come back, had support from Australia, also had people from the US, of course, from the State Department in the US and the White House. They were very supportive to us. And of course, the UK government, the Germans, the Swedish, Canadians, all over. We had support from all over the world. So we organized, and then in September 2012, after 2 years in exile, I returned back home and tried to push the registration of the party again. It was hard. Then they divided my party. Someone else wanted to register it. Chaotic, but we kept on struggling, and we were able to cool off that divisions which they had been created. And finally, in August 2013, that's when we got officially registered. So that took us 4 years struggle. And this was 4 years of struggle in exile with assassinations, as I mentioned, with physical harassment, beatings, and house evictions, being evicted from your house, with many problems. So I have my members who are in exile in Canada, in the US, in Belgium, in wherever, So basically, some of them have not been able to come back because it's still fear for their lives, but we managed. And now, as I say, when I came back, then I had this chance to come to America in 2014. And then I've just mentioned what we have been able to achieve. So I would say that it's been a long journey, but persistence and having faith in what you're doing has helped us reach here. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. That was very interesting, very sad, unfortunate, but as Patrick Obi was talking about, the importance of persevering and keeping going. We've got a few questions coming in, and I want to get to those in a moment. But Patrick Obi and Frank and Just have all been, and Frank, you were mentioning the 2012, 2013. Could you maybe talk a little bit about just kind of one kind of brief experience you had when you were in the United States on the IVLP program? Maybe you could talk about coming to Raleigh or something like that. Was there something that stuck with you, or that you learned, or that you saw whilst you were in the United States? We're going to have to be quick on this one, so I'm going to give you 1 minute each to kind of try and sum up your experience in the United States. We're going to go the opposite way around. We're going to go Frank first. So Frank, in less than 1 minute, can you tell us about your time in the United States and one thing maybe that you took away from the IVLP experience? We can't hear you, Frank. You're muted.
Yeah, thank you. I was muted. I didn't know. Yeah. So when I was in the US, I think we were able to visit Washington, D.C., and then Kansas, and then North Carolina, and New Hampshire. So we're in the 4 states. And in between, we were able to witness elections in North Carolina, in Raleigh. And I would say that we also went to visit some homes. People we visited, and also stayed with some families. So we exchanged more. But what stuck with me more was the issue of the gridlock in the US Parliament, in the US Congress, whereby someone will stand up and say whatever they want to say, and no one will stop them from saying what they are saying. And then they will all agree to disagree and be there and listen to that. And then at the end, even the president's office, the White House, will not come to stop them. That was so wonderful, because I say, wow, in Africa, you cannot be in parliament and you behave like a rebel in parliament. I think the police would just come to lift you up and take.
Interesting.
So this was something so wonderful that I saw. I said, wow, this is like a real sign of democracy in America. I hope you keep that thing moving, because it was something that stuck with me. And it also was an indication of separation of powers, whereby it was an indication that neither the judiciary could come in to say, I will arrest you. Neither the president or White House or whoever big it is, whether Obama or Trump, could say, stop that. No, they just have to keep quiet and let it happen. Yeah. So this is a very clear indication. So the second thing was the issue about the transparency in the election.
Hang on, Frank. Sorry, I'm gonna have to move over to trust, because we're running short on time. But I like your mention of the separation of powers, and I think that's probably very important for someone as yourself in Parliament. Trust, was there something that stuck with you from your time in the United States? You're muted as well, Trust.
Thank you so much. Yes, quite a lot, because I came in 2013 around June, and I had the opportunity to visit Washington, D.C., North Carolina, Missouri, and Kansas City. But what struck me most, it was during my time in North Carolina, in the Raleigh area. A farmer's market, especially here in Gormons, we're struggling with to sell to. There was a farmer's market, which interest in that, so that when we came back to Zimbabwe, we tried to implement that. And I can tell you that we have since reorganized our farmers, and now we are able to manage the value chain from the farm gate right to the market. And our people were having challenges because they had to drive all the way to Harare to sell their produce. But now we've established a local farmers market in Goromonzi for our farmers. And now we are having people coming from other provinces to come and purchase the produce in Goromonzi, and they don't have to go to be exposed to muggings, to theft, in Harare. So I think that was a big lesson for me, that the smallholder farmers can contribute a lot to the economies of local areas.
So maybe that's the, thank you. So that's like this very small scale, but moving on up. Very interesting. And Simon Patrick Obi, maybe you can finish in 1 minute. Can you tell us something about your experience in the United States?
Yes, thank you again, Chris. My experience in the US during my IVMP was awesome, and one thing I took out from the United States was the fact that I understand the concept of liberalism. Libra, everyone has that opportunity to speak his or her mind without any fear of victimization and all that. So that's one thing I took out from the United States. But I'm also going to say that I visited 5 states. I started from the DC. We went to Maryland, North Carolina, Arizona, Florida, and then we departed from New York. One of my best moments was in Raleigh, and I keep saying this, because the quality of the meetings we had was like a square peg in a square box, so it was fitting. I still utilize the professional contact I have gathered and the resource material I gathered from that experience in Raleigh in my work today. Recently, last year, I was invited to speak during the ministerial conference in Sweden. I met a couple of colleagues that I met in Raleigh. So I say kudos to Lila for putting our meeting together. It was awesome.
So the connections that you made, that you still exist today. Very interesting. Well, that's great to hear. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions in from the audience. I've actually got one for Trust and then one for Frank. Trust, we had a question about Africa University. I think you mentioned you are doing your PhD there. And can you just tell us a little bit about how your studies there have impacted your objectives, your services, and your leadership endeavors? Like how has your studying maybe changed your ideas or your perspective on that? We'll have to be quick, so I'll have to give you less than 2 minutes to answer that one. Oh, no, Trust. I think we have lost you. I'll tell you what, Trust, hold on to that thought about Africa University. I'm going to switch to Frank. Frank, there's a couple of things that interest me about the politics in Rwanda. Number one is there is a large number
Thank you so much.
of women in parliament in Rwanda, and so I'd like to know a little bit about how that is. I think having representation of women is very important. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how it is that there are so many women in parliament in Rwanda. And then there's a question about how about the sentencing of Ruiz Bagina affect your party and your work? I'm going to put that word in the chat just so that hopefully you can see that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll start with the one of the women in parliament. Yeah, actually, Rwanda, this is the first country in the world to have a big group of women in parliament. So we are the first in the world. Right now, we have 61.3% of women in the lower house, which we call here the Chamber of Deputies, and 38.5% in the upper house, the Senate. And so how was this achieved? First, it was achieved by, first of all, the government made a rule that for all political parties, they must have at least 30% of women candidates on the party lists, because in Rwanda we still campaign as parties. So that's the first way that at least you have, where you have a man, the second is a woman, a man, woman, man, woman. So basically, if you win like 10% or 20%, then you have maybe 5 men and 5 women entering into parliament. That's one way. And two, they also government created women seats. They call them women representatives from different provinces of the country. So they gave different quotas per province, depending on how the population size of that province. Like the city of Kigali has only 2, others have 4, others have 5, like that. Yeah. So there are 24 seats for women. So then when you add that to the others who come in on the party list, so for currently we have 49 women in the lower chamber out of 80 seats, 80 MPs. So there are 48 MPs women, and out of 80. So the women are, of course, 49. They are more than the men. And then the Senate, there are 10 women out of 26 senators. So basically, that's how we have managed to do it. But for the Senate, they also, the president has a right. He has some about, I think, 4 senators he can appoint. In case the women are not there, the president also has a chance to appoint women to the parliament, to the Senate, in case they have not been elected here. So those are some of the mechanisms that have been used to have more women in the parliament here. But more is about the political will. There have been a persistent political will that women should be in leadership. Also in the executive, in the cabinet, there are also many women there. Yeah, and also the same local government. It's a law by that 30% of all leaders must be women, either in local government.
Interesting. So it is mandated that you have to have a certain amount. That is really really interesting, and a good way to ensure that happens. I'm going to switch back to trust and then hopefully go back to Frank.
Sorry, there was a second question.
Yes, I want to hear Trust's answer. I think his internet is back, but Frank, I will come back to you for the second question. So Trust, could you tell us a bit about Africa University then?
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, Africa University is serving the whole continent, and is a church-based university. So first and foremost, I've learned the values of leadership, especially compassionate leadership. Because before they admit you, they have to inculcate these Christian values into you before you can start studying. But I'm doing peace, leadership, and governance. So it has also helped to hone my leadership skills, particularly to improve my strategic thinking and how to deal with my communities. It has also helped me to manage conflict. As you interact with the community, you are bound to face some conflicts. So it has also helped me to manage conflict in the community, and also to promote peace within our communities. And as a result, I think we are beginning to have a stable and peaceful environment in our communities. And also the last thing that, because previously I just used to think of my work as administrative. But now, with this aspect of local economic development, because I'm doing research in local economic development, it has also helped me to try and find solutions to the problems that my community is facing. So I would say my studying at the university has also helped me a lot. And now I'm into research. It has also helped in policy. The quality of our policies at the council level has improved, because we now know how to do the research before we can pass any policy at council level. So I would say, yes, it's benefiting my community, myself, and also I'm growing as a professional. As I said, I intend to impart my knowledge, which I've experienced, to upcoming young leaders. So I intend to be teaching on a part-time basis, though I intend to remain in my job as chief executive, affecting people's lives. But I also want to impart the knowledge that I've gained over the years in universities. And the other thing that spared me, it was my zeal to produce linkages between the governance system and
I think we've lost trust there a second. So we'll have that. It sounds like a very interesting answer about kind of wanting to give back and what trust had managed to learn.
Area in Raleigh, you know, the government departments linked to educational institutions and research.
So Frank, can I just quickly go back to you? So the second question we had was about the sentencing of Paul Russo Bagina. I may be mispronouncing his name. Who I think was just recently sentenced a couple of days ago. And the question is, how has that affected your party and your work?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I want to say that from the beginning, we made a conscious choice as a party that we are going to be a non-violent party, and we're going to be a democratic movement. And we also decided that as we're going to be using non-violence methods, that if we are provoked, of course we have a right to defend ourselves, but we are not going to provoke anybody else. So it was not easy to remain non-violent when you are being treated violently, when you are being beaten, and when you're being people are killing you, and they're harassing you, they are persecuting you, and you remain non-violent. So it was not easy, but that was a conscious choice that we had made, and we tried to stick on that because we knew that if we go to violence, of course, we will be finished because we knew that the state has the monopoly of violence. It can do anything, it can crush you, it can let you completely. So, of course, I had also people in my party who are former soldiers, former policemen, former ministers. Many people were in my party who were always saying that, you know, these things of you, Frank, talking is not enough. We need to do something. I said, well, I always resisted those calls for doing something which they could say. So I would say that when we tried to start winning smaller wins, we call them smaller wins, people said, oh, okay, maybe it is possible to do democracy in Rwanda without fighting, because we have so many rebel groups in Congo and others want to fight Rwanda, and the former government soldiers, they're always there armed. So people said, maybe this is possible. But of course, it's not easy because it requires patience, persistence, long suffering, and so many people, they are not ready for that. They would rather want to make a coup d'etat or do something and finish it and change and do a regime change. Yeah. So I would say that this sentencing, of course, affects all of us because that it brings more fear to the people, but also in one way it brings more knowledge to people that, you know, if you want to do something of the armed violence, then this is the way you will be arrested. And because Mr. Paul Russo had a rebel movement in Congo, which had come to Rwanda and attacked some villages and killed some people and burnt out some cars and so on. So he proudly said it was his movement and he was financing it. So even though on one side he was fighting for democracy, but he had opted to use another mechanism to get to democracy. Yeah. So it's a message to us that if you want to go that way, you may not be able to succeed because everyone knows that Paul was a very powerful man with a big image, like as a man of Hotel Rwanda, international status, someone who has a presidential medal from President Bush. So for him to have been lured into Rwanda, I mean, he was arrested in Dubai, brought got in Dubai and got somehow not knowing where he was going until he got in Rwanda. So this brings too much fear that wherever you are, if the government wants you, it will get to you. So this is the biggest effect here. So that you know that even if you are in Dubai, you are in the UK and the US, if they want you, they'll get you here home. So you better be careful. So this is I don't know if it's a negative effect or a positive effect, but it's another effect that gets on our minds consciously. Then we know. For us who say that we don't want to go into armed struggle, we also, it's also another resolve to my people who tell me, oh, Frank, stop that talk. I tell them, you see what happens to others, then I think it's another message that I can be able to give to. So it's both ways, yeah.
Yeah,
but of course, I feel sorry for him because his health is bad. He's a sick man, so it's very sad for him. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that thoughtful and very illustrative answer. Maybe somebody who many of our viewers had heard about, but didn't really know the full story. So thank you very much. I'm going to finish us up here by asking our Frank and Trust and Simon Patrick Obi. I'd like to know: is there something that we don't know about your country that you really think that we should do if we are going to go to your country? If we're going to travel, is there something that either we need to see or we need to be aware of? Kind of like a positive thing, you know, something to check out. I know there was discussion yesterday about various falls and waterfalls, which one is the best, and I know there's strong opinions about this. So Simon Patrick Obi, maybe we can start with you. Could you tell, is there something that we need to know about Nigeria?
Yes, of course, I've been looking forward to this question. You know, one thing about Nigeria that the world does not know is that Nigeria are very good people. You know, Nigerians are resilient. Nigerians survive even in the most difficult situation. And I'll give you a typical example why Nigerians are very good. You know, I drive a lot, you know, and then if your car stops on the road, and I'm saying this because I've traveled to a couple of countries and I see how things are done. If your car breaks down on the road, so recently my car broke down on the road, and before I knew what was happening, people gathered to help fix the car and get it off the road. You know, I was surprised. This has happened a lot of times. So Nigerians are good people. And then one other thing, you know, I work in the road safety sector. You know, I traveled to the US and I learned in my school that the vehicle horn, the horn that people use in case in situations of emergency, you know, you use it in emergency situation. But in Nigeria, we use it in emergency situation, but we also use it. For instance, I'm driving, and then I saw a friend driving the opposite, and I want to say hi to my friend. So you hear me do pom pom, you know, I say pom means hi, and now if I want to ask him how you doing, I could say pom pom pom, you know. That's kind of funny, you know. This is supposed to be an emergency.
Well, it's an emergency if you see your friend and you're driving and you want to see how they're doing. That is really interesting. So if we're ever driving in Nigeria and we hear somebody go bom bom bom, maybe it is you driving past, checking to see how we are. Yeah. Great, that's good. Trust, is there something we should know about Zimbabwe? Is there anything of interest if we're going to travel there? You're muted.
You're muted, Trust.
As you know now, Zimbabwe is now open to the community of nations. It's now open for business. We are no longer looking only east, but we are looking everywhere throughout the world. And the Zimbabweans, as you know, wherever they are hospitable people, they are hardworking people, they are resilient people. And when you come to Zimbabwe, you have the opportunity to enjoy our very good food. That's the best we can offer. Very good food. So if you are craving for any good food, then book a ticket to Harare, just the next day, then you enjoy the food. But of course, there are other well-known, world-class tourist destinations that we have, like the mighty Victoria Falls. It's there waiting to be explored. And, you know, for your own information, Vic Falls has achieved 100% vaccination. So there won't be any fear for any COVID, because all the people in Vic Falls, as we speak, have been vaccinated, just to make sure that our visitors are safe. So even our president was vaccinated in Vic Falls, just as a symbol of saying, you are welcome to Zimbabwe. And then we have been natural wonders. You know, the big 5 animals of the world are found in Zimbabwe. So you can come if you want to see game viewing. You can come. We have all the animals, the world, the big 5 of the world. And then we have our ancient city. You know, people often talk of ancient city in terms of China, but for Zimbabwe, we also have our own ancient city, which is called the Great Zimbabwe, where our country gets its name from. So if you come, we can have the opportunity to take you to the Great Zimbabwe, so that you can learn how our cities were organized long time ago. So many to see. We have people who respect their seniors. I've been to some countries where you don't see that, but in Zimbabwe, we respect our seniors. We are very respectful people. So as we speak in this new dispensation, everyone is welcome to Zimbabwe to do anything, be it for tourism, be it to do business. It's free. Everyone is free to mingle. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, thank you. Sounds like you've got everything. Yeah, the food, the animals, the nature, the history, the culture. Fascinating.
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Can you try and sell us on Rwanda? Like at the moment, I'm torn as to whether I think I need to do a tour. But what should we know about Rwanda? What is there that we can look forward to if we come?
Yeah, Rwanda is a home to the endangered mountain gorillas. The mountain gorillas, they are the closest animal species that are the closest to man. I think they're 98% similar to human beings. And, you know, there's an American lady, Diana Fossey, who died in Rwanda protecting these mountain gorillas. And her tomb is also here in Rwanda. She was actually killed. She did not die. She was killed protecting the mountain gorillas. So she gave all her life. So all Americans here, you're welcome. This is the one thing you have to do in life, to see your closest next human, the mountain gorillas. So they are only in Rwanda, Congo, and Uganda, but Rwanda is the most safest place to visit them. 2, Rwanda has the most beautiful women in Africa. Second only to Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the second to us. So we have the most beautiful women. So, you know, so you understand.
That is wonderful.
You can get married here. You can
okay,
get
so
married
very beautiful
here
and well represented in Parliament as well. So
yes,
that's good.
Then too, Rwanda also is the I think first country in Africa, according to the World Bank Doing Business report, one of the first countries in Africa that have eased business, can attract investors. People you can register a company in one day in Rwanda. You can do your business in Rwanda quickly. So this is according to the World Bank. We have made all the laws possible. And actually we are establishing the Kigali International Financial Center this year, which is going to serve as another financial hub for the mainland Africa, because we've been having Mauritius International Center, but has been covering the India. And then the Casablanca Financial Center has been covering most of the Middle East. So we've not had any financial center covering mainland Africa. So all investors all over the world, you're going to come to Rwanda. We have made over 20 laws to make this happen. And the hope was to launch it during the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, which was supposed to be held this year, but was postponed because of COVID. But anyway, we are going to launch it soon. So this is another good thing for investors. And of course, we have American investors here. We have Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation here. They are doing business here, and they are also funding an university here. So we have President Bill Clinton, I think, has some projects here and so on. So basically, all Americans are welcome to Rwanda. And we have a very strong culture. You know, in Rwandan culture, I think we're the only ones who had, I think you saw Lupia Onyango when she was moving on the carpet, the cut she had. We had a cut where people could have the very long hair, but they could make like a hole here and then have one side here and one side here. So if you check again Lupia Onyango on our award-winning night, you see that she's the one who reminded us about that. So it's part of our culture, from our culture. And recently, many young men have been doing that, and many women are trying to do that. Yeah. So we have a strong culture, over 1,000 years old culture, and we have one language. And yeah, it's also we have majority of people are Christians, so people are very respectful, and we're trying to also to reunite once again. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. So it sounds like we can come for many things there, but also I don't know. I think my hair, I don't know if it can do that. Maybe maybe it'll take a while for it to grow up. But this was really interesting, gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking the time to help us understand more about yourselves and your countries and what is going on there. I'm just going to give a quick plug to a couple of things, and then I'm going to pass it over to Simon Patrick Obi just to finish us off. So for any of our people who are watching, if you want to become a member of International Focus, you can check out the International Focus website, which maybe Layla or could pop in the chat. And then also, if you want to sponsor an event, you should definitely contact Layla as well if you want to help put on an event like this. And as I mentioned, finally, the upcoming social event is our Global Social Thursday on October 14th at 6:30 p.m. That is enough for me. Simon Patrick Obi, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to add to that?
Well, mine is just that, I mean, the discussion so far has been inspiring. Getting to hear from Frank, the resilient spirit, and that also resonates with the saying that say nothing can stop the voices of people chanting change. So it's a good one. Also getting to hear from Trust, through his his commitment in infrastructure, he has been able to change his community, and of course, allowing the voices of his community people to prevail. That is what democracy is about. So thank you very, very much. I hope this conversation continues, but of course, we are limited to time. And I hope that we should continue to have this conversation, especially beaming the light to Africa. I've always followed the International Focus monthly diplomacy series, and I enjoy all that have participated in this one to sign up and to ensure that they follow up the conversation. It is an interesting conversation, trust me.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate you tuning in. Really appreciate Frank, Trust, and Simon Patrick Obi. Everybody enjoy your weekends. And once again, thank you very much, International Focus, for helping put this on.
Thank you too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much blessing to you all. And welcome to Rwanda.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll come after those.
Yes, please. You're most welcome. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.